I'm even going to go back to starting at the press conference yesterday. I still felt like we had an opportunity to play this game. I feel terrible that we weren't able to do it. Certainly to so many of the Louisiana Tech and Baylor football family, administration, teams that are so looking forward to playing the season and getting it started. And we were certainly looking forward to this game. I'm going to go back just a little bit to say that through fall camp, we went through 3 weeks and we had one positive test through 3 weeks. We had the players in the building from 7:30 in the morning till dinner at 8:30 at night. We were in practicing, we were pads, we were meetings. Everybody was wearing masks. We were being really socially responsible and felt really good about the path we were on, not knowing what it was going to look like. But having one positive in the first 3 weeks, I felt like this is going to happen. I was really excited about the season. When Hurricane Laura came through here on that Thursday, we were actually supposed to test on that Thursday, but with the hurricane, we had to cancel all the testing. Unfortunately, Hurricane Laura threw the city of Ruston without power. The only power in the city was at the university. And so you had many of the dorms still had power and the football building still had power. We have about 50 players that live off campus in Ruston that were without power. We canceled, I believe it was 3 practices for 3 days. We didn't practice, trying to feed our players with nobody having power in the building, nobody having power in the city was very difficult. For 3 days, it was kind of a little bit more survival mode for a lot of the players than it was about football. And so we did not practice for a couple days, came back together, started going back into Baylor preparation with what we were doing. The first test that came back right after the hurricane, we had around 10 players that were positive. Still felt like through positives and contact tracing, then we had the second test and the numbers went up significantly. Still was looking at the depth chart on where we were. We had 56 players, I believe it was, that were able to play at that time. But we still had 3 tests to go through. We still had to go through the Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday test. Coming back from the Sunday test, we had last night, late last night, I told the team that we would practice when we knew whether or not we were going to play, and that we would get these Sunday results back, and that would go a long way in showing the outcome. When they were supposed to be in in the morning. I was supposed to have an 8 o'clock team meeting. Something happened at the lab. It was pushed back. We didn't get them till 6 o'clock that night, and I had pushed the team meeting all the way back to 7 p.m. When I got the results back, which had 9 more players, which put our roster down to 47, put us down to 47, and that included 4 quarterbacks and 5 specialists. So when you look at it, 9 of those 47 were quarterbacks and specialists. We had a couple positions that we were not too deep at. When I looked at our inside receivers and some of the number of players that we lost, a couple positions on defense. This was not a decision on who was out, on whether or not to play, but this was a decision how many were out. We had 38 scholarship players eligible to play in this game. With those type of numbers being anemic, we just did not feel like we could take our team over and put them in a game. This wasn't Fox Television, Power 5 team. It wasn't a scrimmage. We couldn't stop in the middle of the third quarter and say, I got 2 people down. I got to stop. And come across the field and shake hands and say it was over. I just felt like for the players' safety, it wasn't the right call. I went to the team meeting. I had the numbers for about 45 minutes. Was able to look at the depth chart, called Tommy McClellan, the athletic director, told him where we were. I walked into the team meeting. I said, guys, look, this is where we are. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I would tell you there's maybe a chance because at that time, everybody had not had the opportunity to get on the same page. I said, I'd like to go out on the field. I'd like to practice for about 30 minutes. I'd like to run around in shorts. We're not going to do anything against each other. We're going to go out there. I want to throw the ball around. I want to pitch and catch and just try and get them back to some normalcy. So we went out and had a 30-minute practice in shorts. as soon as I left that team meeting, I called Tommy back immediately. Right after that, we talked a little bit more about the depth chart. He had the opportunity to talk with Dr. Geis. He had an opportunity to talk with the administration from Baylor and said the best thing for us to do is to postpone this game. As a football team, both programs I know wanted to play and were excited about playing. I told the team, that was during practice, I went out and told the team at the end of our 30-minute workout that the game had been canceled because of numbers. I know there's some misnomers that we went out there at 7 o'clock and said we're all gung-ho, we're playing the game, which is a totally false statement. That's not the conversation at all. I told the team, I was very honest with them. I said, I don't know. I cannot tell you that we're not, but I cannot tell you that we are. And so let's just run out there for 30 minutes and let's go run around a little bit and get something done because of how late it was. And so with that being the final decision, with the numbers that we had, we knew we still had to go through Wednesday and Friday testing to see where it is. We have organized nothing today. We're giving our players the opportunity with all the students back on campus right now. We start classes tomorrow. We had an academic meeting this morning to talk about classes, picking up books, etc., all the things they need to get done for classes tomorrow. And that's what we're trying to get done. We're just trying to wrap our arms around where we are right now with the number of positives we had. Like I said, we went 3 weeks with one test, and then in the last 9 days since Hurricane Laura came through Ruston, we've had 36 positive tests, and it takes too big of a toll, and the depth chart wasn't large enough in order to go play the football game. So that was the timeline of what happened. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that anybody might have. But again, I want to reiterate, this had nothing to do with who was out. We had 36, we have 38 scholarship players and 9 walk-ons were on our roster to go play in the game, to play the 2 deep. So this was more about overall numbers right now with what we had, and I don't think anybody understood what the hurricane and no power for 5 days did to our football team, who were sleeping on couches, trying to find air conditioning. Some of them even came up here and slept in the building. I mean, everybody was just trying to get situated and get comfortable to be able to sleep. And so, like I said, that's what we went through, and that was the timeline. I'll answer any questions anybody might have.
Hey, Malcolm.
Okay, Christian.
Hey, Skip, I know it's kind of a weird situation last week with Hurricane Laura, but before, I guess, the storm made landfall in Ruston and the Monroe area, did you talk to the players about, being socially distant, being socially responsible, making sure you stay away from, I guess, large groups or something like that?
We did. We had talked about, we weren't sure what we were going to get. We knew we were going to get high winds. Some of the projections were we were going to get 70-mile-an-hour winds, which electricity and some of those things would be an issue. We talked about it, but when you get into a survival mode, like I said, I think, it's a little bit different. It's kind of like when you're looking at a lot of these programs that are spiking with all the students coming back on campus. I think they were just trying to find air conditioning to be able to sleep in, and where they were going to get a meal, or where they were going to eat. But we had talked about all those things, even canceling practice. We still tried to do what we could to communicate with our players and with our team, but it was very difficult. After the first day, we were able to get a little bit of a grip on it because we still had air conditioning in our building. But at the same time, when they left here at night trying to find places to sleep, it was a little bit different. But we talked about those things, but I think, like I said, being in this building for almost 12, 13, 14 hours a day, they were doing great. But like I said, I hate how it came down. But we did talk to them about it. But unfortunately, it didn't help.
Question. All right, Wesley.
Coach, obviously the situation is very fluid, but with this large number of tests, how much is next week's game in jeopardy?
The question was asked to me this week. I mean, who can you tell us is guaranteed to play Saturday? I can't tell you anybody. I can't tell you I can be there. We're being tested, 3 times a week, and there's many of our players don't have symptoms. I mean, many of them have not had symptoms. There's some that are arguing with me that, Coach, I don't have it. I mean, this is a false positive. But so right now, with knowing that your whole team is going to be tested, I can't tell you who's going to show up. I can't tell you. We have 4 that have symptoms, so they may be in. With how sensitive some of these tests are, many of them are finding it before a person even has any symptoms. So right now, do I think we can play Southern Miss? Right now, I would tell you I am encouraged. We've got the wave of the first test is going to be back by about Saturday, Sunday, and then we should get another wave back of about almost 20 players should be back Tuesday or Wednesday. They've still got to go through, once they go through their time periods, then they go through their heart procedures, the echocardiogram, the EKG, the blood work to make sure that they're safe there. Then they've got to go through a 3-day acclimatization period to be able to play. So I am hopeful and encouraged that if with no complications with the EKG and the echocardiogram, we could return up to 30 players for next week. With all of a sudden you go from 47 to 77. I mean, all of a sudden it's got a completely different picture to it, and you've got enough depth on your depth chart. What I can answer is how many more people are going to test positive between now and then, because we had a test this morning, and then we have one Friday, one Sunday, one Wednesday, and one Friday. So we still have 4 tests before we play Southern Miss again. So even though we may add 30, I don't know what the number is going to look like on the other side. And hopefully with the multiple tests that we're taking a week, that we can start to get our arms around this, and we can make sure that we can keep our players safe and we can put them in a free environment. We closed the building today. We're bombing the building, trying to do everything we can on our side to make sure that we can get this under control.
Alex?
Hey, Coach. I mean, everything you just listed in terms of all the procedures and the testing and all that, it just seems like so much. You add class on top of that, and then obviously practice. How in the world are you keeping these kids focused, especially now when you were so close to game time, and to have this kind of your hearts ripped out like this?
It's hard. I haven't had a team meeting since last night on the field when I talked to them. With the building being bombed and everything else. And we brought them in, did testing this morning, got them out, trying to keep them away from each other as much as we can. But, I talked about it in the press conference on Tuesday. That was yesterday. Golly, it seems like a million years ago already. But talked about Tuesday about all the distractions that this has led to, camp has led to, the new norm with what we go through, from COVID, from testing, from masking, to social distancing, to we've got our players in 2 locker rooms now. We've got a locker between every player. The social justice issues that are out there that are pressing, a lot of them. And we've had a number of team meetings where we've had an opportunity to sit down and talk about those to a large extent. And then you put a hurricane on top of it. And then you put all the students coming to class and everybody reporting to campus. And oh, by the way, we're supposed to play Baylor, so we've got competition going on, and what's going on trying to get a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator without spring practice to get them to install their systems. I've never gone through this many distractions and trying to understand the protocols that even if you don't have a symptom, if you test positive, I mean, you're done for 10 days. For 10 days, you're secluded to your room. Your meals are brought to you. You're not allowed in the building. You're not allowed around anybody, regardless of whether you have symptoms or not. These are protocols that are going on around the country right now, and so these players are. We're all forced to follow them. I know they're in the best interest of everybody. They're in the best interest of the safety and the health of the team and the community and what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do everything we can to follow them. But it's very strenuous on many of these players that don't understand with so much of it. So it's been hard. It's been a lot of distractions. It's been very difficult because we've had very little time to really focus on Baylor. You can't have team meetings like we have in the past where you can put everybody, you can't put 100 guys in a room to have a team meeting. The team meeting, well, we had one the other day over in the TAC and spread them out throughout the entire basketball arena. I mean, it's been a challenge for sure. But you know what? Nobody said 2020 was going to be easy, and if you're going to hit the curveball, you got to be patient. You got to keep your weight back, and every day you know something else is going to be thrown at you, and this is what we have. I mean, this is what we've got to do, and we've got to adjust to it, but it's certainly not the norm. I kind of pride myself on being structured and being organized, and it has been very difficult for me as a head coach for 21 years, I think I'm going into now. It's very difficult for me because I pride myself on being structured and organized and having the fall camp laid out in January and having what days we're doing what and when we're scrimmaging. I'm kind of down to I started camp with a 7-day organizational period because you can throw the 30-day plan in the trash can. So I just tried to get 7 days at a time, and I even threw that away and said I'm going to work at 3-day periods. I just got to figure out what I'm doing for the next 3 days because there's so much change in every day. And God bless these players and the way they've handled it. The unknown, things changing on them constantly, but they've had a great attitude and they've come in and worked and they want to be good. They understood that this would be a different season. They understood that we were going to have to overcome some adversity to get to where we want to be, and hopefully we can keep our players safe through this period that we're going through right now with this spike that we've had in the viruses, that we can keep our players safe and that we can kind of get through this and come back together and be able to put a product on the field and play the game.
Corey, go ahead, Corey.
Hey, Skip. Appreciate your time, man. Kind of take me through, because I know these guidelines have changed a couple of times, but the protocols and the guidelines for guys that are in contact trace, what's the timeline for those guys?
Well, we've talked about the 36 positives. What we haven't talked about is there's 10 injured guys on that list. There's 36 positives, and then you have your contact tracing guys on top of your positives. It's a complicated system, but more or less, and the university has said that if you live on campus and you are tested positive, your roommate is automatically in contact tracing. Contact tracing is a 14-day period. It's a 14-day isolation period. So as soon as you are named in contact tracing, you are in quarantine or isolation for 14 days. Once that 14-day period is out, if you have no symptoms at that point, you're allowed to come back. You're allowed to come back. I've said that, the worst part of this is having contact trace, because you could be out 14 days and you still haven't had it, but you just missed 2 weeks of camp and football and competition and maybe games, but you still don't have it. At least once the player tests positive, once they test positive and gone through their 10 days and then their EKGs and their acclimatization period to come back, at least that player has a 90-day window where he doesn't need to be tested anymore. You could be named in contact tracing 3 times, and all of a sudden you're missing 6 weeks of football and you haven't even had it yet. And so I think that the contact tracing to me has become, I want to say, it's a very difficult thing. I understand why it's in place. I understand the need to try and stop the spread of it with what we're doing and to try and get the circle of where the virus may be located and get those players isolated so they're not around the team. But I certainly think the 3 tests a week is going to help us with contact tracing and really help limit that as well, because we're getting test results back much quicker. And so if a player does test positive, there's only about a 24-hour window in there where he had the opportunity to contact trace somebody, rather than 4 and even some point in time 5 days before we've been getting test results back. So that's kind of the protocol for contact tracing right now.
Hey, Corey, one thing to note on contact tracing, I know that to fall on contact tracing, Skip mentioned if you're on campus and you're in a dorm room with somebody, you're automatic, but I think and Skip, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but no mask within 6 feet for longer than 15 minutes is basically the criteria for contact tracing, just so you guys are aware.
And that is something that we have really, I mean, from Kurt Hester meeting with him down in the weight room and his lifting groups, from when we've talked about in team meetings, they need to understand what protecting themselves means. I mean, it means that you need to stay 6 feet away from somebody. If you're going to have a conversation, take 2 steps back. I mean, you don't need to be space invaders. Like, get away from each other. If you're going to walk into a meeting room, you don't sit in a chair next to a guy. You don't even put 1 chair between you. Put 2 chairs between you. Spread out. Don't sit directly behind somebody. Sit in that gap in between it, where if you stay 6 feet away and you wear your mask and you don't engage more than 15 minutes, then you are not only protecting others around you, but you need to make sure you don't put yourself in that space. And our education process has been, you not only have to protect yourself, that if you're going to have a conversation with somebody, put your mask on, take a step back. I mean, this is part of what we wear, part of how we do things now. And I think these players have done a great job of contact tracing, and we have very few. We had a couple early where I think it was a hard lesson to learn. Where somebody talked about standing in the locker room, you know, where we were all in there for about 20 minutes talking, and all of a sudden it's like 8 guys are out for 14 days and they're out of camp. And, you know, it's hard to put your team together when you take a big bulk out like that. But we had a couple situations that we had to learn the hard way. But we just kind of dug our feet in and tried to use them as educational moments, so maybe we could get better at doing our job to eliminate contact tracing in this thing. And I think the players really have done a great job, especially with the number of players that are out and the number of players that are in contact tracing, compared to what we had early, where we would have 1 positive test and all of a sudden 8 guys are out of the locker room.
Questions? Let me know if you have it. All right, Christian.
Hey, Skip, I don't know if you even thought about it yet, but is there any particular date you have circled for when you guys could return to the practice field and start working out again?
Well, we're going to take a look at it right now. I mean, we canceled everything today. We're not, the rest of this week, I do not see us doing a lot as a football team. I think we need to get our feet on the ground academically. I think we need to kind of circle the wagons with what we're doing, making sure we're bombing this building, that this building is clean, that we are keeping everybody safe. And I would imagine we'll look at getting back to work on Sunday and getting into a game week when we return maybe these 8 to 10 players from the most previous tests, provided the echocardiograms and the EKGs and the blood work works out. So probably get back to work on Sunday.
Questions? Corey?
Skip, I know the guys that were going to be available this weekend had another round of tests today. When do you anticipate getting the results back from today's tests?
I'm hopeful that we can get them back Thursday night, Friday morning is what I'm hopeful. That's what I hope. I mean, we've changed labs that we were using. The previous lab was maybe a little bit longer, but this one should be we're hoping a 24 to 36 hour turnaround, but we'll find out how that goes.
All right, time for maybe 1, maybe 2 questions. Anybody got anything? All right, Corey.
Skip, do you know at this point, have you guys had any conversations with Southern Miss? Have you guys started getting that ball rolling and just opening up those discussions?
Of discussions of will we play?
The possibility of trying to play next weekend.
No, I mean, right now, like I said, anticipate with those guys coming back and us doing a good job here over the next couple of days, getting our arms around the virus that obviously is in our football team. When you look at the number of positives that we have, I'm certainly hopeful that we can play. I don't know what these tests are going to look like, but no, we have not had conversations. I'm planning on playing unless these test results show something different here over the next week.
One last question.
Hey, Malcolm.
Yeah, Christian?
Hey, Skip, you personally, have you spoken to anyone at Baylor, in particular, maybe Coach Aranda himself, about everything that's taken place since yesterday?
I have. I've visited with Coach Aranda on the phone, talked to him. We both are in agreement. I think both sides want to play the game. That's why it was postponed and not canceled. We don't know what this season's going to hold. We both have each other's game plans in a filing cabinet now that this one has been postponed. We both may have a week somewhere during the course of a season where both of us have a team cancel against us, and we may be able to say, let's play this weekend. Let's pull those out of the filing cabinet, and we'll come over to Waco and let's play. If not, you don't know what the end of the season's going to look like. You don't know who's going to be in the championship games. It's certainly something that both teams would like to play. I've said this all along, and I have great respect for Coach Aranda. I think the world of him. He may be one of the nicest guys on the planet. I've enjoyed the conversations that I've had with him over the years, but I did have the conversation with him. I apologize to him. I feel awful that we weren't able to get this done on our side, but I also know that we're dealing with this as a society, not just a football program. He couldn't have been nicer about it, but we all understand that we all want to play, and it's a very difficult situation that we're all put in. But I did have the opportunity to talk with Coach Aranda, and I know that Tommy McClellan, our athletic director, has talked with theirs as well, and the administrations have been in contact with each other.